Right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fall Line with KS and Company. We are back this week with an absolutely awesome podcast we're going to have tonight. We are welcoming to the podcast Nick Blaylock. And Nick this year is one of our friends of the podcast and sponsors the podcast along with Blizzard Technica, which is really cool to have Blizzard Technica on board. And Nick is over near Mount Snow in his own shop, Nick's Bootfitters. And he absolutely has been putting me in boots for a long time, and it's awesome to have him here tonight. Thanks for coming on.
No,
Nick.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for inviting me on. Nick's Bootfitting is the shop, Dave.
What did I say? Nick's Bootfitters? Jeez, see, look at that. I already messed it up with my sponsors.
That's all right. Everybody will figure it out once they start typing it in anyway. Yeah. But no, it's great to be on, and I enjoyed watching you guys last year and wanted to be a part of it. And when you called and asked me if I wanted to talk about boots, I mean, I love talking about ski boots. So it's great.
Yeah. And also Angelo is here to make sure that I don't make too many mistakes like I did tonight already.
I'm not going to be able to do that.
Hey, yeah. You were skateboarding again this week, Angelo?
Today. Yep. Destroying my feet. Screwing up my alignment, so it's a good thing Nick's on because I'm all messed up.
Well, I was going to say that, man. I think you didn't have your have some orthotics or footbeds in the sneakers you're on that board.
No, all of the above.
You were almost speechless, Angelo, on that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you get your foot all used to being out of balance and feeling the board now, so you can get used to the winter coming up. So
yeah. Oh my. Yeah. I'm gonna stuff them in some boot. They're not gonna be happy.
I won't make it work.
Well, hey, we're here with Nick Blaylock, and I've known Nick for quite a while through my PSA days. Nick started fitting my boots, I think, when I was going to, even maybe before Pro Jam or during Pro Jam, when he was there with Greg Hoffman and the crew way back when in the early days. And Nick, so when did you start skiing, man? Because I didn't know you back then. When did you learn how to ski, and how'd that go?
Oh, for skiing, I grew up on the coast of Maine, down East Maine. So obviously there's a couple little ski hills, and didn't really do it. Did it as something that was fun and different. And then just through like middle school, like 10, 11, did it a little bit more and started liking it. And obviously was pretty athletic and did a lot of different sports. So I loved the challenge because I never really got taught to ski. Nobody told me how to snowplow and go through. They basically went up with buddies and went up to the top on the T-bar, and then they push you in the back and say, see ya. And so figured it out from there and had fun, and then just started doing it more and more. And I think what really changed was when I was 14, my coach was a pretty high-level coach, and he brought in his former coach, which was Tom Reynolds out of UMaine Farmington, and he did a talk about skiing and usual coach stuff, talked about it here and did that, and really got me interested. And I think ever since then, when I was 14, that's really got the bug about skiing and learning everything I could learn about it.
Oh. Boy, what an honor it was for me when I was in early years of being an examiner. Only been in there a year or two, and I was able to ski with Coach Reynolds, and just had that one time skiing with him. And I'm like, you always call him Coach. It's like, it's just
always Coach.
Everybody, before I had skied with him, everyone talks about Coach Reynolds and Coach. And I'm like, and then when you meet him and you ski with him once, it's like, yeah, that's Coach.
Yep. Just the way he talks and the way he looks at things is similar to how I think of things. And we connected really well. And, then skied through prep school and high school stuff. And, knew I had some choices. I was never going to go skiing competitively at any real school. Club teams, I could have made all that stuff, but with my racing days. But what Farmington was doing back then with Lee Breidenbach and with Coach and Doc, that's a bunch of us decided we wanted to go there, and that was forever ago now, obviously, but that really inspired me to want to be a ski coach, ski racer, and keep going forward with things and learning more about the industry.
Yeah. So when did the seed when was it set? When did that seed get sowed that you wanted to be a boot fitter, or you started to kind of delve into that a little bit? Was it with your own boots, or?
Yeah, I mean, my feet are kind of, they're not hard or anything, but I'm just not flexible in some certain things. So could never really figure it out. So, but I'm a tinkerer, engineer mind. So I like to tear things apart and build it back up and kind of figure out, kind of work backwards, figure out, why things aren't working the way they should, and experiment, and then go back and then learn why it worked. And I got all my certifications with, PSIA and USFCA and coaching, full certs. And I was going to be a race coach. I was going to, do some stuff for USSA and Beth Raymond and be the Eastern Development Coach. And then I was just like, nah, I don't really want to. I didn't really have the bug to drive around and do all that. So kind of knew what Greg was doing over in at Green Mountain Orthotics way back when at Stratton, and Lee Bradenbach kind of introduced us, and I went over there, and within the first 5 minutes, I knew that's what I was going to be doing. The biggest thing with boot fitting, and obviously teaching and coaching is great, and I love being out on the hill and working with people and seeing, I have a really good eye for movement, so watching people ski. But I think knowing that I can have more an effect on somebody skiing in the shot than I ever could teaching them or trying to do drills or progressions, because if their boots and skis or their equipment isn't right, they're never going to progress, because they're always going to have that big hurdle in front of them that they can never, move past, and always feel they're at that terminal level.
And, there's definitely a science to boot fitting. As you go through the preliminary stuff, if you're a beginning pro and you go to some of the boot fit clinics that you put on for us and some of the other guys around the East that are great boot fitters, where did you learn that science? Was it working with Greg exclusively?
Oh yeah, definitely. With working with Greg, his way he thinks of things, he works backwards also, and just his idea and his how he looks at the whole picture. And then he was a full cert instructor also, and so having the feel and knowing how things are on the hill for where the feelings are going to be and when you're supposed to have them and what to look for was a good thing. But being there that first year with him, and that was in 2000. And another guy that worked for him was a guy named Scott Thompson, and I only worked with him with one year. But he showed me a lot about alignment and movements, and it just took off from there, and just wanted to learn more and study. And I mean, the biggest thing is, I think for me that, how I have a passion for skiing and love talking about skiing and boots and equipment and all that stuff anyway. But everybody's a challenge, and it's, you're listening to what they're talking about for their symptoms. And it's my job as kind of the investigator or the CSI kind of work to kind of figure out what their real problems are and then put them together. So it's just build and and then with experience and learning more about stuff with anatomy and the product, the engineering, it's just, it's just gone from there. And it's still, I still love coming to work every day. It's great.
So when people want to get a boot, they, they ask us a lot, because some people will go, I'm a Technica foot or I'm a Nordica foot. And I mean, how much of that is true, and how much should they come in to see you first, or someone that does the stuff you do to try to let them know what the boots are now? I mean, because I can't imagine all of our boots are the same as they were 10 years ago.
Well, that's the funny thing when people talk about, well, I've always been a Technica or a Lang foot. It's like, okay, was that Technica back in the Icon days in 03, 04? Because that mold got destroyed in like 07, and they went to a whole different mold. And, but it's all about foot shape and foot ideas. So, they've kind of gone through with their different ideas, especially Technica, Lang, have done a lot of work with different volumes and shapes. So it's just a matter of looking at somebody's foot and saying like, oh, your foot's this style. It has like a V shape where it's narrow in the heel, wide in the front. Your foot's real straight, or you have like a C shape. And it's just matching up squares, just like you did when you were like with my kids, when like little kids, where they're putting the blocks and the stars and matching things up. And it's, you can, with boots these days, they're so easy to work on anyway, with molding and shaping, where you can literally take a square peg and put it into a round hole. But why not take the square peg and put it into a square peg and have so much less work to do, and keep the integrity and the performance mind that they designed with the boot there. And but yeah, I mean, I'm open. If people bring boots in, that's great. And I can say, hey, we can work on this. This is no problem. There might be some better choices, but we can still make the boots work. They're so easy to work on now with things. It's compared to, say, 30 years ago. I mean, the technology's just progressed so fast every year, even.
Yeah. And so once you've got the boot and you've kind of looked at someone's foot, and I know you do the flexibility stuff and check all the varus and all those kind of fancy words you talk about, how important is that footbed? Well, the boot's job is really only as a support around the sides of the foot. And so the job of the insole, a custom footbed, an orthotic, some people call it, but a footbed is something that creates a foundation and builds from the bottom up. So it works together with the boot, because what's in the boot is just a piece of flat felt, just to make it feel soft and squishy when you put your foot in, so that you say, hey, I want to buy this. This feels soft and squishy underneath, and doesn't really create that platform or a foundation that's solid to help out with movements and control and kind of hold the foot in place to make the boot perform like it needs to. So the boots, obviously is 1A, and footbeds are definitely 1B, but they go hand in hand, and you want to have at least some kind of support underneath, whether it's a full custom or even if it's just an off the shelf, something that has some shape built into it. You just need something that holds your foot in place a little bit better. Yeah. For me, it's crazy. I went through a lot of my search stuff without one. And then when I got my first footbed, it was like, I didn't get enthralled with like the performance right away. It was just my foot in it going, it just felt so much more comfortable. Like I take the footbed out and then just put my foot back in with that. It cracks me up when you take out the insole that comes with the boot and you kind of fling it over and you're like, yeah, that's 10 cents.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what their design is. It's just something that's soft, and they're not going to put as much effort in. A lot of people ask like, hey, how come there isn't, these better insoles in there? And it's like, well, what if you don't need it, or you have your own insole, and the company's going to have to charge you $50 more for that boot. But yeah, I mean, it's just something as a starting point. You got to go somewhere, and it helps obviously to make the boot warmer. And most everybody, just uses that and is fine, and doesn't understand that there's so many different options to help out with not necessarily performance, but just comfort also, because it just helps out with distributing weight more evenly over the whole foot, which makes it more comfortable, and then makes you feel the ski edge to edge so much better.
Yeah. And now, what are some of the different things you use with your footbeds? Because I know you have different materials you use for different stiffnesses, that kind of stuff for your footbed.
Oh, well, it depends. So you talked about one of the most important things when people come in the store, whether they have their own boot, they're buying new boots, whatever, you have to do an assessment and kind of figure out what their issues are. So you got to learn about their flexibility of their ankle, like flexibility of their foot, their arch. So different flexibility. So somebody who's really flexible needs more support to hold their foot in place, where somebody who their foot is real stiff and rigid, like how mine is, having support doesn't do anything to me. I need that comfort and shock. So learning about somebody's foot, I can use different materials to help bring them into that middle zone and get them what they need, whether they need more support or they need more shock absorption and ability to just distribute weight and be more comfortable under their foot better. And that all starts the moment they walk in the door. And you got to learn what's going on with them as an individual, and everybody's different. So that's the main thing, is to boots can be customized, but I like to talk about that I'm personalizing boots to people, and it all depends on what their unique characteristics are to their foot.
Yeah. Because I know Angelo and I get, these are some of the basic questions him and I hear all the time of like, should I be in a stiffer boot? And they don't put anything to that other than just, I think I'm in a soft boot. Should I be in a stiffer one so I can ski better? Or do I need a plug boot? Do I need that plug boot and it's interesting that you can't make that one determination without doing your assessment of each person's flexibility and stiffness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's obviously it depends on the individual skier and what their goals are. If somebody's only looking to progress just a little bit, there's no reason to put them in a full-on race room stock, plug boot. They're never going to be able to use that boot to its capabilities, and it's actually going to limit them in their performance and in their progression to being a better skier. So, I always like to put people in stiffer boots than what they are as their performance level, because you can always grow it with the boot, because we can always do things to soften boots, but it's really hard to make them stiffer. So you can put somebody in just a little bit more of a performance boot compared to where they are, especially if they're going there. I don't carry beginner boots or lower end intermediate boots, because people are going to outgrow them on their performance way before they're going to, outgrow them on their, usability, and their liner's going to pack out and things like that. So, but yeah, it's always funny when people come in and say, well, I'm a good skier, I'm going for my level 3, and I've heard from some people I need to get a race room boot. And it's like, well, okay, well, are you racing? Well, no. Are you going to be standing in them all day for 8 hours in the cold? Yeah. Well, these boots are pretty cold and they have a pretty thin liner. And, but there's these other boots that are perform just as well, and they're actually going to be better for you. So let's look at these ones. And, that's always great with people with, if they come in with their own boots, or they'll say, hey, I'm looking for, this Mach 1 Technica or a Lang RS 130 or something. It's like, well, we can try that one on, and hey, here's 2 other ones that are a little better for you that might be where you need to go.
Yeah. Angelo's sitting there, he's thinking, he's shaking head.
I think you said we get a lot of questions, and I think I hear more assumptions than I get questions. And I think a major assumption is that the stiffer the better.
Yeah.
But I don't think, and this is based on my experience of not knowing it, not realizing how much of a role my personal flexibility played in what boot I should be in. Like Nick just said, someone very flexible versus someone with a more stiff foot, and I don't think people know that, but that's based on me not knowing it before, So can you talk to some of the assumptions that you hear, Nick? Like when folks come into your, when they come into your shop, what sort of things do you have to dispel before you get to like really have an honest conversation with somebody about what they might need?
Well, just being honest, trying to open up, asking them questions, what they're looking for, what their goals are, what they're looking to progress. Like, hey, I'm not really looking to do I only want to do hiking and backcountry stuff. So there's no reason to put them in a race style boot. Or if I pull out, for brands, I pull out a blue boot for somebody, a Lang boot, and somebody says, Lang, I had those way back when and they killed my feet. And it was like, well, that was a long time ago. They've changed. So having people open-minded and, I'd love to, obviously their feedback, they're part of it. They're buying the boot from us. I don't sell boots. People buy them from me. And I'm just giving them the best options. But the biggest thing is educating them. Hey, I know you want this low volume, super skinny Technica boot, but hey, this medium volume that's a little bit wider, it's the same exact boot. I know it doesn't have the cool colors and something else that you're looking for that's in the magazine, but this boot's actually going to be a little bit better. So educating them what their needs are and what I'm seeing and why, and then letting them be the judge. That's the biggest thing. I mean, going back to the stiffness thing that you were talking about everybody needing a race boot, if you're a higher end skier, well, the reason why you have a higher end boot is because you're skiing faster, skiing harder, transmitting the power from your foot through the boot. The boot's a lever to bend the ski. But if you're a high level skier and you can perform and you're in balance, you still could ski in a rental boot and be able to go out and still perform. Obviously, you're not going to do 50 down the mountain, but you still should be able to stay in balance and get the boot to perform. The biggest, I think being a race kid and all that stuff, way back when we had gone out to demo team stuff at Copper, me and Greg Hoffman a long time ago. And, Greg's buddies with Rogan, and we saw him out skiing, and then he skied over to us and he was just arcing and making these beautiful turns. And he came up to us and he was in a Nordica rental boot and he was doing some performance stuff because they were doing some photos, and he was getting some feedback on how they could improve things. And so that opened up my eyes, seeing a super high level skier being able to make the same turn he could with his race boot. And same feelings. Obviously, you have to do some different, different tasks and some different movements to get things to happen with that kind of boot. But in your skill set and your bag of tricks, you can still be able to do it. So, I mean, the boots are all adjustable where you can change the performance lower and make them softer. And I think personally, most everybody's in a boot way too stiff for them, because you still need to be able to have movement and absorption with the boot to be able to stay balanced front to back. And four-act balance is the most important, I think, of the skill sets for everybody. So it's everybody thinks that they should just be able to leverage on the boot and lean on it. And it's like, well, great, but you still need to be in balance.
So, Nick, skiing has been influenced by racing for probably historically. That's a pretty safe statement. But are you starting to see an infiltration of like some freeride mentality coming into boot design now that, that's becoming so popular?
Let's say like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the high-end boots were just based off of the race boots. And then there was two categories. There was high-end race style, and then there was your bucket boot, your intermediate level and below boots. And there's been a couple of brands that started to progress and to be like, well, people that are higher end aren't necessarily going to be looking to go down that front pitch that's all icy. They want to go in the back bowls of Vail. They want to go do some other steeps here and there in the backcountry. I think one of the biggest things is K2. They don't make race boots. They have no racing mindset or anything. And they make some really high end boots that are unbelievable for performance and for me for customizing and adjusting. But they're bringing it from a different setup where they're looking at it from just a pure skiing setup rather than looking at like everybody had before. And that got a lot of the companies, 10 years ago when they started making boots, to kind of look at the same idea. And that's kind of when I started working with Technica, same idea. They just wanted to look at it from a different point of view. And about 10 years ago, when boots really started changing with different plastics, different ideas, really stemmed, I think, from that. And there's just so many options now, which is great.
Well, and it's such like what you're talking about is such a great marriage of science and art, because it's like the first thing we talk about are people's desires. What do you want to do on this? What do you want to do? Wanting to do something is the art piece of it, and then you use the science to get them to their goals. And I just think that's such a great example of how being rounded in your approach and being open-minded in your approach to skiing opens up some doors for you that you might not have considered before. I think that's the biggest question. That's great asking people what kind of level skier they are. That's great if you're an expert level skier, but you have two kids and you're going to be on the bunny hill and you're not really ever going to be in the next 5 years going to be able to ski how you want to on your own. But your mindset is you want to go ski with your kids. So let's get something that's comfortable. You maybe has hike mode that you can walk around with them on the bunny hill or do different things. So, asking them obviously what level is great, are you high end, or how many years you've been skiing, that's great. I've skied for 40 years, but
have you been a double black level skier for 40 years? No. And same idea with progressing, with maybe getting older. You want something that's comfortable, that's warm, that you can still get around in. So asking them, the biggest thing is what you're looking for. Hey, if you're looking for a hard charger, great, I got those boots. Are you looking for something to go hike but still be able to ski all day? Great. But being able, because that eliminates 3/4 of the wall right there of all the boots, trying to figure out what they want, and not the feeling that I'm pushing them into, the Nordica boot was the boot of the year or one of those kind of things. And I'm just telling them what's all the advertisements and stuff. It's something that still goes to that personalization and making them an individual of what they really want.
So, hey, you've had a pretty big deal with Technica, that you've been working with them and part of their research and development and feedback. And can you talk a little bit about how that works and how you get into that and your involvement with them now?
Yeah. So the group that we're in, it's called for Technica group. It's called Project 165, and it started off as a bigger setup. There was about 6 of us from around the country in Canada. They just really wanted to get some ideas from the bootfitters of what people are looking for in the shops, what we're seeing, what are some challenges, and start working with the engineers about, what they're seeing and what we're seeing, and kind of talk about it and figure out what the needs are and go from there. We started that in 2011, and that was started mainly by a guy named Bart Tuttle, who was the project manager forever for Technica, and a guy I had known for a long time, and really trying to get, a boot fitter's view into some of these designers, instead of just like you guys had talked about before, just spitting out race boots and then taking a race boot and softening it, and there's the expert level boot. So start talking about different shapes, different widths, volumes of boots, and still being able to make them. You can have a higher end expert level boot that is a really, really wide fitting boot and still be able to perform just like the race boots. And those were not on the market even 10 years ago. So if you were a higher end skier and you had a big wide foot, you were either paying me or some other guy a whole lot of money to widen those race boots out so you could be comfortable. Or a lot of people ended up, quitting skiing because boots weren't comfortable and just didn't have the options for them that there are different setups of their fit. So we started over kind of with all the boots that they had, and worked with their engineers and started developing different styles and creating a story. And it's, basically there's about 5 different fits right now within the line of Technica. And so basically there's a shape for every foot, as well as there's a performance level for every foot. And really start working on different things with how the liners can work, because the plastic's great, the shells are important, but the liners were basically just carpet foam in a lot of these boots, and they were just all thrown together, and really spent some time engineering the liners, and a lot of companies have followed suit, because now that's really what can hold the person in place and make it more comfortable, have better warmth, retention, better circulation, but also marry with the plastic and be able to perform really well. And now there is 4 of us, and there's 2 guys from Italy, and we kind of get together. Obviously, we were getting together about 4 times a year and skiing, trying different things. The engineers would come to us and say, okay, here's some plastics, here's some things that, could work. And we'd go to them and say, well, what can we do this? Can we do that? And I think that was a great thing for me, because then it gave me a better understanding of the engineering of the boots. Because we all say, well, why can't they just make the boots really easy to get open and you can get in and out of them or do different things? And it's like, well, unfortunately, the boot can't really perform if you do that, but here's some tricks that we can do, and try this and try that. And, and now instead of the boots taking, 24 to 30 months to develop from starting to being out on the market, now we've whittled it down to almost 12 to 18 months, and really streamlined the process. And it's just worked out really great, and I'm happy to be with them and give them input, and obviously go skiing at all these fun places and go to Europe a lot, and why not? But it's definitely opened my eyes with being in the shop, of understanding when people say, well, why can't they just do this? Or why is this buckle here? Well, this buckle has to be here because it has to hold you there. And there really isn't kind of any option right now for things. And so that's a cool thing, just to understand things a little better of how it's actually built.
Yeah. So Angela and I will let you know that, when you have to do those Europe trips and you need somebody to carry your bags, wax your skis when you're over there, just give us a call. We're ready to roll.
I caddied in college.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, hopefully once all the sickness is all done and we can go back over and meeting together, because we've been doing a lot of Zoom stuff and talking. But it'd be great to be able to sit around the couch like we all do and drink a beer and then go do stuff, because we can get stuff done so fast getting up together. It's amazing. Just all the minds coming together and talking about different things. And there's people from different parts of the country, which is great. So they're seeing different things at different mountains. And hey, Nick, what are you seeing over in the East? And, here's what I'm noticing. Hey, Matteo, what do you guys see in Europe? Here's this, here's that. And it's kind of cool just to see, hey, this is what they're doing in California. This is what they're doing in France. And then getting understanding of like, oh, okay, well, we could do that here, but we don't need it. Or maybe I should start looking at it that way. So.
There's a big push going on. Blizzard Technica has been doing it for a while with the Women to Women program. And it's actually teamed up with PSA and Aussie. They're doing a 3-part webinar. It starts tomorrow with Leslie Baker Brown. And I know a lot of the stuff that's going on with that, because the boots that are coming out for the women and that. Can you, what are some of the technologies that and research that's gone into the Women to Women for the boots and even the other companies that are doing a lot with women's stuff?
Yeah, the biggest thing, because I help out with them with kind of overseeing, and there's another girl that's kind of partnered with us now with Sam Tischendorf, who's out of she's out of Telluride, and she kind of works with us on Project 165 as a bootfitter and also on the women's to women's side. But the whole mindset of the women's has always been, well, you shrink it and pink it. And so they would take the guy's stuff and just put pretty colors and flowers on, and there you go. So the biggest thing with Technica, especially with these two boots, the women's version, and everybody talks about a women's specific fit or a women's specific foot. In my opinion, there really isn't a women's foot. Everybody's foot's just a foot. It's everything from the ankle up that's different. So with the women's boots, they're shorter. And one of the biggest things with Technica, they have this adaptive cuff, the CAS system, where you can heat this up and get different shapes for somebody's lower calf and different shapes, contours. And they have a group of about 10 to 12 women that are kind of in their focus group and get their ideas, same thing of what they're seeing, what people are talking about in stores, what they've noticed with women, trends, colors, different things that would just make women feel more like this is their own setup rather than it's just this orange boot and it's a different color and shorter and softer, and it's got fuzzy foam on it and fur and things like that. And I think that opened up a lot of people just understanding, obviously women are half the market. So they have their own setup. So guys have their ideas too, and they can crisscross. I mean, I put guys in women's boots. I put women in guys' boots. It's all about your physical structure and how you're built. So they have two different styles of boots and things that are actually real, an actual difference of the boots rather than just a different color is a big thing. And Leslie spearheaded that and really pushed. She was director of marketing forever for Technica, Blizzard, and Old Vocal way back when. And she just has always been an advocate for women's stuff. And, it's worked out really well. And the women's group, and they started branding it and logoed it. And now with the partnerships with PSIA, and it's really brought a lot of the women back in to have their own identity and be part of skiing again. So it's great.
That's awesome. So when we get into the actual fit, or I shouldn't even say, I shouldn't even say that. It's like this, you talk about a neutral stance, that it's not the fit of the boot alone. It's not the alignment of the boot alone. You really look at the whole body. And like when we set up my boot, I know you like to look and have me in that neutral stance. Can you talk a little bit about what that is you look for in folks and how you want to get them centered, fore, aft, lateral, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So it all goes to planes of motion, and which is the skills of skiing with all, obviously the old ATS manual with fore, aft, pressure control, side to side movement, lateral, rotary steering movements, which creates the biggest one, which is balance altogether. So the biggest way to think of it is you're a joystick and you're just trying to get somebody centered so that they can make any movement equal distance, left or right, uphill edge, downhill edge, with the same amount of energy to get things to happen so that they can be more of a proactive skier instead of reactive. So finding their setup and learning somebody's knee alignment, hip alignment, fore, aft, front to back balance, you're just setting them up so that they're in a balanced setup. If you just push them down the hill with any little movement, they can make any little adjustment for terrain, snow conditions, some little kid coming out of the side of the hill, but so that they're just not predetermined or preset onto one edge or being one side dominant. So what we're looking for is everybody's asymmetrical and a little different. So you're just trying to get them into what we call that home base or that neutral stance so that they can just move wherever they want. And, that makes them a better skier just because they're not having to adjust and adapt to certain things. Because if you're, already set up on inside edges and that's just how it has you standing, you got to make a big movement to get back to zero, to flat ski, before you can roll them over to the uphill edge to be able to start that turn. And while your other ski is doing its own thing because they're just not in sequence. So it's just about trying to be symmetrical and bringing everybody back to their unique setup, and everybody's a little different.
So when you look at, there's so many variables. Like I love coming into the shop and just watching you work on folks and work on their boots and how you talk it through. Cause like it is every person you start with. It's like you don't start necessarily in the same exact spot all the time. There's kind of definitely a flow when I watch, there's certain things you do first, but then it's interesting how that changes and where you go with folks. Like, is there really like a set place you have to start, or is it a little different when you start setting somebody up because of all the variables with the body, the flexibility? Then you got, the putting them into the boot and how the boot's formed and the height of the cuff, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way to think of it is, when we were kids, you read those books that were those choose your own adventure books where you could, you read a passage and you say, well, do you want to do this or you want to do that? And then go to this page. And so it's the same idea, but you still have to start with the foundations. And we call them the ABCs of boot fitting. So part A is the boot environment, making sure it's the right size, right shape, right performance, maybe right heights, proportions, things like that. And then you can move on to B, which is the foundation, the foot environment. So making sure they have some kind of support front to back, understanding their ankle flexibility, and then understanding their lateral, their side to side movements with what an insole or a custom footbed will take care of to help balance them better. And then there's always that who knows section, but you always have to start there. And sometimes I do it really fast on people because, you see that they're all set on these certain things. So I can just kind of move forward. But then it just kind of goes to a tangent here, a tangent there, and it goes back to what their needs are. Hey, my foot's fallen asleep a little bit, so let's start looking at this who knows of where it's getting choked off somewhere. But you still have to go back to what we call those ABCs and really have some kind of foundations or kind of a ground level start for sure.
Yeah. Because it's funny because we tease Troy, especially when he's not here, then he can't defend himself. But Troy's a riot on the hill. He'll walk up and it'll be funny. There'll be people hopefully putting in comments like, yeah, he's done that to me. That he'll walk up to a group and he'll just look around at their boots and he's looking at their buckles to see how much they've cranked them over. And he loves just walking up and he'll go to some of your boots too big.
Yeah, I think I've made him. I've worked on Troy for years, and I think I've made him dangerous because now he's got his own equipment and his own boot fitting tools and Dremels and all this stuff. And but it's true. I mean, it was a long time ago, but the numbers are crazy because everybody that owns their boots, there was a study done. 94% of the skiing population that owns their own boot is in a boot one size too big. And then 79% of the skiing population is in a boot that's two sizes too big. So it's just crazy. Most everybody's in, and that's our ABCs, that's A, and they're already in the wrong setup because the boot's not holding them right. Their foot's going to move around. They're over buckling. They're doing something. When I used to do the lectures for, examiner training and director seminar, that was the biggest thing to talk about was how important the ski boots are. And, that's great getting people on the hill and doing these lessons. But if you're going to spend 2 hours on a private and do these progressions to get them a better skier, but they're never going to be able to get any better because their equipment's holding them back, you got to start there with the ground level, making sure they're in the right setup. Skis too long, skis too short, wrong widths. They're on a 115 millimeter powder board. And it's a hard packed day at Mount Snow. That isn't going to be a fun day. But so isn't, being in a boot two sizes too big that you just can't perform and move around. So, but yeah, I mean, that's a great thing with hopefully teaching a lot of the examiners and ski instructors that come in what to look for. Do I want them or tell them that they should be tinkering with boots and doing all this stuff? No, because they should be, you guys are the instructors are the eyes on the hill and seeing what's happening in real time. So I love when I used to have the shop on the mountain at Mount Snow, that was great because people could come in with the instructor and the instructor would say, hey, Nick, for Joe here, I'm seeing him do this in the turns, and those are giving me some cues of their symptoms. And then I can start doing my investigative work and kind of figure out what the problem really is. But, and I used to do I think Bill does it now, but, stance and alignment course where we take people on the hill when it was part of PSIA, which was great because we're not trying to balance people or do anything. We're actually trying to do the opposite and get people off balance so that they can ski and they can get a feeling and a sensation of what they're happening with their feet, with their upper body, their movement sensations through the turn of how they have to overact or overcorrect to get things to happen. And then completely put them backwards and then make them ski that way right off the bat. And I think that course was a great eye-opener for people just because it actually got them on the hill. And then other people that are there, the instructors, because it's a group thing. I saw, Jim skiing and he skis great, and now he has to really rotate his knee and he's got a lot of upper body movement to see what's happening. And maybe that's a cue that like, oh, this client that I've been working on for a long time, these are some of the movements they're doing and it's that they're overcorrecting and overdoing things to get things to happen. Or if they didn't do those things, it would take forever to make a turn. So I think that's a great for the instructors to have, to be just dangerous enough where you guys could be putting trail maps in boots and on cuffs and fill volumes. And I don't know, when I was a race coach, we used to play with dimes and nickels for, alignment issues for canting to actually get a true feel and to get a racer to get that sensation that we're looking for that we've been talking about. And well, let's put a little shin here and do that. And obviously with liability, that's probably not the safest thing, but there are options with duct tape and things like that. But at least just, being able to have a conversation with the guests that, hey, I think there's an equipment thing going on and that I'm noticing, and either let's go into the store, here's a boot guy or girl that I'm really, have a relationship with, and they're going to be able to look at what's going on. And then let's go back out on the hill tomorrow and see what's going on. And then we can start progressing and really getting to where we need to be. And I think that's one of the big things that instructors really need to do is try to get out of their element and get a different feel, because we always get let's say the same boot every year or the same setup. and you never really get out of that feeling that you've been into. See where you have to make different movements or different feelings. And I think those courses are great. I mean, Charlie Rockwell used to do the Get in Gear thing. And I used to help him with that way back when at Bromley and make all the instructors ski in rental boots. I think that's the best thing in the world. That should be something that's at every mountain as part of their ski school training and development, is to put them all in rental boots, so they have to see what their guest is working with, and maybe that changes the way they teach and start instructing and talking to people.
Yeah. That little 10-cent footbed, I love when you go in the rental boots and somebody puts their foot in and you hadn't looked in there, and it's like slid already forward, all the way forward, and it's tipped up this way and their toes are hitting.
Or it's got 3 packs of the shake-up heater still in there. And a bunch of toe cheese and any of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, God, the poor stuff that people go through with rental boots.
And that's the biggest thing with what are the numbers? I mean, you guys would know it's like 15% of the population that actually goes skiing the first time goes again. So 85% of the people aren't. And that's going to be a big push with a lot of the brands that they've been really working on, of making these rental equipment and lower equipment, instead of it just being these cheese boots that aren't any good. In skis, they've put a lot of research and development to make the progression, the skiing style, easier to learn, and talking with PSIA and ski schools around, and figuring out let's make the skis like this, because this, that's kind of where shape skis and, rocker early rides came from, with being able to get the tip on edge so much easier, and, less effort and better to steer because you're on a smaller ski for rotation. And, I remember old Sugarloaf days when, the old GLM with, starting the guys at 130 and then going to a 145. And that just made things more playful. And, but getting back to that idea with the rental, that, with all these people that are in, not knowing how things work. So I think with ski schools and rental departments at these mountains, I mean, that's the biggest opportunity that I think is lost with skiing.
Oh.
I had a girl in a lesson. This was probably in 1994, and beginner lesson. And this is when I knew I thought I was a equipment and boot fitting genius, because she just had this look of agony on her face. And I said, "What's the matter?" And she said, "My foot hurts." And I looked down at her feet, and one of her boots wasn't buckled. And I said, "Well, your boot's not buckled." And she said, "Well, I can't buckle it." So, "Well, why not?" Because she had a house arrest bracelet in there.
Yeah, I've had
so
that.
What do you do with that, hotshot?
Oh, no, I've actually had that. You kind of smile and you don't want to prod too much of how they got it. But you can just take a junky liner. You always have boots kicking around that you're using for parts or whatever. You take the liner and cut a hole out of it and maybe push the boot out a little so it takes tension off, and treat it like, it's a part of their leg. It's how it is. When I was teaching way back when, with part of Farmington stuff, with the ski industries program, we were doing stuff at Sugarloaf, and we're all, they brought these kids up and they just basically threw a pile of boots, down, and the kids kind of picked their own stuff, and we're out there waiting for them. And we're waiting. I can't remember what the kid's name was, but he was probably like 12 or 13, small kid. And, he finally came out, and it looked like he was wearing flippers because he had these huge size 13, 14 ski boots on. And, the kid's maybe 4 feet or whatever. And he comes slomping out, and the kids are talking to him and said, "Hey, Steve, what took so long?" And he was like, "Well, these are the only boots that were big enough that my shoes fit in." So he had his sneakers inside the boots because he didn't know. Nobody had gone through the steps with him in the rental world to talk to him about, one, how it's supposed to fit, what you're looking for. He just kind of kept trying stuff on and still had his gym shoes still on. And that was pretty crazy.
That's a new form of footbed.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's I don't know how he got his foot even in there. Just in general.
Nick, what do you think how many years average under their belt does your typical customer have? By the time they come to you and they're like, I want you to set me up, how long does that take from when they're beginners?
Oh, you mean how long they've been skiing before they realize that they need a proper boot?
Yes. Yeah.
For a lot of times it's because there's been so much education now with Ski Magazine. I used to be a product tester for Ski Magazine forever. And then one of my buddies that's out in Oregon is one of the writers, Mark Elling, who does a lot of stuff with the boot world. But just getting it out there that these boots can be worked on and adjusted. So we're seeing a lot of people who have rented for 1 year, especially with the pandemic last year, when people got back into skiing or had never skied before, so they could get outside and do stuff. They're going straight from the word go, that their first pair of boots, they've only skied a dozen times, but they want to get the best boot that they can so they can be a better skier. Obviously, skiing's not cheap. I mean, with lift tickets and passes and just everything in general. So, and we're competing with Disney World and the beach and warm weather and stuff like that. So a lot of these people are starting to understand that, it doesn't really necessarily mean, that you've had to ski forever before you get a real boot fitting and a proper boot that works right. You can get it from being a beginner and get the right boot and go from there. I'd love that, because they're not predetermined or pre-set up with bad information or what hasn't worked for them or any of that stuff. And then you talk to them about the boot and educate them and talk, hey, here's some of the features. Here's what's different with this boot versus this boot. And, see that there's options. A lot of people just don't know that there's options in the ski boot world, with fits, styles, shapes, performances of what you can do with them, with hiking, with hybrid boots, any of that stuff. So with true fitting, with insoles, I mean, like a complete fitting, you don't have to have a problem with your foot to get a custom insole. A custom insole's job is two things. It's to balance the foot and distribute pressure. So you can still have, let's say, the perfect foot where you have no issues with it, but you can still get something to hold you in place and create that foundation. So even if you're just skiing on the greens and hoping to get to blues, an insole is going to help you, down the road quite a bit, because you're going to be able to perform and progress that much quicker. So, kind of a long answer to your thing, but I mean, it's for averages. I mean, most everybody will buy their own boot either at, a fall sale or get it from a buddy before they want to invest, say, $600 in a real boot. But then after they figured out that boot hasn't worked for them, then it's okay. Well, let's talk to somebody about why it's not working and get a boot that's a proper fit and a proper hold, and enjoy things. So, yeah.
Yeah, because we've been the clinics you talked about that Bill Hate's doing now with PSA. He's been doing a bunch of them. Dave Taylor did. You did a bunch before that. I've done some of those as the staff member out there, and it's a blast having people go the wrong way and like things don't work. They start to figure out that, oh, this is what some of our customers have. But when we go to footbeds, this is something definitely we've been encouraging folks to go see some other people that's near them to get the good foundation. Because it is hard for a lot of our members. They're trying to reach that level 2, level 3, or even go to dev team. And without that good foundation there, there's no way that you can get them really aligned well, correct? Well,
yeah. I mean, that's one of the key things with the old racing mindset with Bodie way back in the day, because his foot's super flexible, and, that people were like anti-footbed and that it locks the foot in place. But the whole job is that it's going to hold the foot in place. I'm not locking the foot, making it real rigid where it can only do certain things. It still has to have some, kind of some fluff or a little bit of movement. And usually it's like, for numbers wise, it's like 2 to 4 degrees of ankle range of motion side to side is what the footbed is what you're looking for. You still need that fudge factor of people being able to have some feel and some sensation with skiing. So it's just not an on-off switch with the boot locked in place. But I mean, the biggest thing that a lot of people that come to me, that either a lot of the instructors or examiners or, coaches have been, they failed these progressions, and you guys as examiners have said, well, you're out of alignment. You need to go see, whoever. that's the biggest thing that's holding them back, is they're using their movements to get them to the home base. And then that just takes away some of their range of motion and extra movements they can do to go to really articulate and get that edge to where they need to be, or ski kind of in that fourth dimension we always talk about, of being able to go through time in different setups with never knowing what's coming next, and being more of an aggressive style skier instead of a reactive, just one turn eddy going down the hill and doing because the boots got you locked up. But basic alignment, cuff alignment with the top of the boot where it can move side to side. I mean, it's all about using these adjustments and the features of the boots to enhance your fit so that you can perform as best as you can be. If somebody comes in, I'm not going to make them, a world-class racer, but if they had that ability to be a racer, them being in the wrong setup of equipment is going to hold them back. So us as boot fitters, what we're doing is just trying to get people into their optimal setup of what they can do and enjoyment. And, maybe they're going to ski more and go to different places, take more lessons, want to be a better skier, but it's all about getting them so that they can be the best skier they can be, where they're going.
But it's so profound what it does, what a good fitting does, and what a great fitting boot does for you. Like I remember the first pair I had that was really, really a great fit. I could feel the muscles in my feet articulate. And that, not to say my heel would move, I was locked in, but there was no, well, you talked about, I watched one of your YouTube videos, you're talking about over tightening. And when you over tighten, you cut off all that movement. But if you've ever stood on a Bosu ball, like in a sneaker, and you're balanced on one foot on a Bosu ball, you feel that fine articulation of the ankle, and you feel that fine articulation of the muscles in the feet. And when you have a really great fitting boot on, you can still feel those things as you come down the hill. And it just fine tunes, in my experience, just fine tunes the skiing so much. And I look back and I'm like, why did I wait so long?
Well, that's always the funniest thing. You see people, when you're skiing, you get to the top of the hill and somebody goes down and they just start cranking on their buckles, tighten them as much as they can. They ski down the hill. They get down to the bottom. The first thing they do is flip them all open. And what they're doing is trying to bring the boot to them to hold them in place, because if their boot's just the wrong volume or wrong shape or whatever. But you should be able to ski in a boot and perform in a boot that's lightly buckled, because you want the boot to hold you through fit tension, the design of the plastic and the hold, rather than buckle tension. So it should just be that these buckles are actually really loose on the sides and not over cranked where it takes three of us to try to buckle it down to hold them in place better. That'll give you a better feeling on the hill of movements and sensations, but it also helps out with circulation. The biggest thing is you want an even fit all the way down so that you can have equal blood flow through your arteries and then back through your veins so your foot can stay warm. But also if you've ever, cut circulation off in your hand or your wrist, where you have that sleepy sensation, you have no feeling in your extremities for balance. So like we were talking before of skateboarding and stuff, I mean, you got to be able to have, those skater shoes that are real low cut so that it can allow your foot to move and sense the board. I mean, in people that are over tightened ski boots, I mean, you might as well go take your ski boots skateboarding, because you're never going to be able to use your ankles and your foot to feel the board to move things around. And the only thing you're going to do is move higher up the joint chain, and you're going to be doing a lot of knee and hip movements. And you see that with a lot of people skiing, of like they're bending a lot more at the hip. They're doing more upper body movements because the joints that are down below that are in the ski boot can't do their job because they're getting either choked off or they're working more than they have to. So
Angelo, this is what we need. I'm giving away the answer now because he'll probably listen, but Terry Barber wants us to, do jump rope in our ski boots. What tricks can you do to our boots to make it easier for us, Nick, to do that trick?
Well, just think of what you need with jump rope, and you need something that absorbs energy and then that you can bend and propel. So rental boots.
So I was thinking rental boots.
Rental boots. Just put some Firebird stickers on them, or some some RS boots. Some blue Lang stickers on them, or whatever, to make them look like they're race boots. But you just need something that's can absorb energy and then propel it. Because the idea with flex, everybody's wondering about performance of the boots. The higher end boots are stiffer and have denser plastics because the whole idea is to take the energy that you're using with your upper body and your leg and transfer it to the ski. So a lower end skier is going to ski slower, not ski as hard, and put more energy into things. So they need a boot that absorbs energy, because they're never going to need something that transfers it. Where a higher end race boot or an expert level boot is really stiff, so that it can push all that energy to the ski and get things to happen. So, hey, if Terry wants you guys all to, with examiner training, to be all in jump rope and stand on a half dome ball or any of that, I mean, you have to bring some rental boots.
We're gonna paint them orange.
Take all the plugs out of the back of the boot and just make them free. You take a hiking boot and unclick it, and you can definitely hike and jump in that kind of boots. So,
man, that's awesome.
They don't need to see what boot it is. Then you go in the back and flip into your Mach 1s or whatever's, before you guys jump back out on the hill.
There it is. There it is, Angelo. We got it.
There's your
Sue's not listening. She's going to come out with a box of jump ropes. First,
right. Sue's looking at it going like, well, we can do these exercises to make it happen better, which is true, but hey, I'll use all the equipment advantages and technology that I can.
That's where Angelo and I are. We want the cheat sheet, man.
Yeah.
Well, as we start to finish up, I think it's really neat. I've really enjoyed having boots and the education I get in the shop, but it is neat. If people are looking for someone that doesn't try to sell them, this is exactly what you need. You really listen to what I'm trying to do on the hill, what I want to accomplish. And we've worked on a lot. And you have, as we've developed that relationship, as I wanted to change things, you've looked at me and just went,
yeah.
And it's not loud. It's just kind of, and I'm like, you don't like that. You're like, but then you did explain what you're thinking.
Well, and then I tell you, I'd be like,
do.
well, hey, that's a great idea if you want to do this. And you're like, but that's not what I want to do. And you're like, okay, so there's your answer. I used to be a golf pro and do stuff like that. And one of the head pros would always talk about it when people duff off the tee, and it's like, that's an interesting way to play. I wouldn't have thought to do it that way. But good luck with that. But, with boots and how I talk to people about things is, I'm on the side, I have, I know what every boot is. I know, with training and how your foot works and stuff, like what could work. But is that the ultimate thing? No. I'm wrong a lot, and which is good, because that's why I'm so smart, because I try to learn from all my mistakes, it's, and so I'm wrong a lot. And, but the whole idea is, and then I talk to them of why I think it is what it is, and, go from there. I mean, talking about Troy, when he talked to me a couple of years ago about wanting to go into a smaller boot, and I just was like, why? And he's just like, well, because I can do this and that. And I was like, well, you can do this or that, but here's what you're going to lose. Are you willing to lose these certain things to gain that? And I was wrong, because obviously he stretched the hell out of the boot and made it work. And I didn't think it was going to work, because it's whatever, but same idea. So it's it, and everybody feels sensations and pressures differently too. With my foot, I have a really wide foot, but my foot's been used to being in a race boot forever, that it can just morph into a tiny foot and, and be fine. But there's other people who any little touch on their foot, is agony. It's so everybody's a little different with sensations, pressures, diabetes, Reynolds, all these other different things going on that you have to play into a factor. But it still comes down to people choosing what they want, and my idea is to educate them, talk about what I'm seeing. Here's the reasons, and then it's up to you.
I think it's just important that I wished I'd done it even sooner, was to have that exposure to you and Greg Hoffman and Bill and Mark Stewart over at Wyndham and Dave Taylor. because it's a great education. And I love when, I think of ideas of what I want to try to perform. And sometimes I get, yeah, let's do that. And then sometimes it's just like, but it's that education and using your knowledge of like, will this work? And
well, like you said, theory, is it going to work, right, or is it just like, it could work, so let's try it, And so that's the biggest thing with like canting, where everybody was really big on alignment with canting. It was like, well, in theory, it should work. In the store, it works statically, right, but you're not statically on the hill. You're in the dynamic setup. So the biggest thing is tape, playing with duct tape on people's bindings. And in theory, here's what it looks like in the store when I put somebody on the bench and go through my little rock and roll and drop the plumb bob and look at the line and stuff like that. But there's so many other factors in play. So, I want people to go try things, because if you're only listening to somebody tell you how it should be, you're never going to get a sensation of what isn't working, or, hey, that actually works better in this aspect that I didn't know I was looking for. And it all goes back to learning styles and different ways of teaching and things like that. So, I never really tell anybody no, except for the person who wants to buy a boot like 2 sizes too big, or they want to buy a boot because Nick Blaylock said that this in Ski Magazine, this was the boot, or my buddy has the boot. It's like, well, yeah, it could be a boot. And I have never really been in the mindset of just somebody wants a boot, I think it's the wrong boot, just sell it to them. I kind of poo-poo that and say, no, actually this boot over here is way better, and here's some other stuff, but try it, and then it's up to them if they make that decision. When people come in the store and they have issues, they always talk about that they were sold the boot, you sold me this boot and I'm feeling this or that. When everybody comes back happy, they always talk about that they bought the boot. I bought these boots and they're working excellent. And my mindset is always to get people that they're buying. So I'm not.
So let folks know that dumb.
Well, yeah, I'm the person that has stuff that they're buying. I'm never selling. I hate the hard sale, and I think that goes back from working for Greg forever, of that laid back mindset of you can only bring them to water, and it's up to them to drink it. But it's up to, you educate them as much as they can, and they're making an educated choice of what they want. And, and then understanding why. So
the shop opens soon. We'll be launching this podcast.
I always wait as long as I can, because I know people always email and want to get stuff done over the summer, but with people going to the beach, wearing flip-flops, your foot's not ready. And mentally also, I think, once the leaves start changing, it starts getting colder. So I always open up weekends in October. I think that's the best time. Best time to buy a boot, in theory, I think, is November, because the companies have the shops have the best selection. You're been in a tied up boot or a sneaker for a little while now because it's gotten colder. A lot of the boots that don't work for people are people who came in flip-flops, and their sensations aren't right. So I always wait until as long as I can. But Columbus Day is usually the best time to start thinking about your ski boots. And ski boots are always the first thing you want to get. You can always demo skis and try different things. But with the boots, it's really about getting that first dialing those in. It's the connection to the body with the foot. The saying is always, you date your skis and you marry your boots. So, you always get your boots done first, get those properly fit, and then you can start demoing or trying different skis, because then you have, talking about variables like we did before, then you're ruling out the boot and some of those issues of why you might not have liked a certain ski, or, it didn't work for you, or one worked better, but it might have been because the boots weren't set up right, and at least eliminate that factor. So yeah, always get your boots first, and then you can get the skis on snow and try some different things and go from there.
Yeah. So I know folks can, this time of year before you open up, they can send an email, check out your website.
Yeah, I got a pretty basic website, but yeah, nicksbootfitting.com. There's tons of, obviously the gear guide for Ski Magazine just came out. Mountain Magazine's Gear One, Free Ski, all those ones are starting to come out. And the good thing is it gets people to just understand some of the information that's out there. And there's so many different articles out there with skiing, with boots and how they're supposed to fit, what you're looking for. My friend Sam, who's out at Telluride, she does a lot of writing for Ski Magazine about talking about how a boot's supposed to fit, some of the different things out there. Matt Schiller, same idea out in Park City. But there's so much information out there about how boots can feel and what to look for. So yeah, I mean, I like people to do their research and get an understanding of what's out there, and and go from there.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for being with us tonight. And I know Angelo probably has a couple of things, but I wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast tonight, and also for sponsoring us this year and being a friend of the Fall Line with KS and Company. It's awesome to have you on board.
Yeah, definitely appreciative. And last year when I saw one of the first podcasts and saw those boots in the background with the sticker on it, I was like, yeah, all right, it's there. And then I was like, I gotta get be a little more, do some sponsoring and do some other stuff. With the shop, I just opened it up last year, and I was a part of Mount Snow and had a shop called Mount Snow Bootworks for 11 years. And, now, split with Vail coming in, I decided to split and walk away. And so starting to get some, exposure for the shop that we're out there, and we're right here at Mount Snow, half mile away. It's such a great hill for skiing. It's an easy place to get to from every direction. So that's why I love being here. I was out west for a while with Greg and Vail, and then at Stratton before that. And this is a great place, and I'm happy to have this store. And I only sell, have ski boots. I don't do any skis or snowboard boots, or we can work on snowboard stuff. That's easy, and that's just as important as the ski boots. The snowboard fit. They're at a different angle with the board and things like that, but all the same factors are in play for how it's supposed to feel in movements. But just concentrate on boots. And I have another guy with me this year, Craig Wilson, who used to be with me up at Mount Snow, and was a longtime ski instructor, 25 plus years at Mount Snow, and I think in Connecticut too or somewhere. So he's going to come on, and he's understands the foot and boot stuff as well. So it's great having him on board, and it's going to be a good year.
Cool. Angelo.
I like 4 questions. 3 of them are stupid. So you can pass, Nick, if you want.
I like stupid questions because then I can give stupid answers.
All right. Do you want the stupid ones first, or you want the real one first?
Yeah.
What's the best boot advertisement of all time?
Oh,
it's got to be the Lang. With the Lang girls, from the, before my time, in the 70s, with any of that stuff, when you could be a little more risky with your stuff. K2 did a spoof on them a couple years ago with the girl in the green suit, and you opened it up and it's their bigger, hairy DJ guy that was in Ski Magazine. I think that was a great advertisement and a play on the old Lang girls from way back when. But I think for advertising and stuff like that, it's probably got to be that. Everybody knows it. Everybody has their poster or remembers it when they were younger. So,
right. What was the silliest boot gimmick of all time?
There's a couple for sure. There's ones that were gimmicks that I actually thought were great, and then just were just failed. But hold on, I got it right here.
He's got it in the shop. You're gonna go to YouTube for these props, folks. You can't on the podcast.
And he's back.
He's back.
I got my little boot museum. And just weird boots, but there's actually 2. I should grab the other one too. But this was the old Dalbello called the SGS boot.
Oh, yes.
It weighs about 15 pounds, but it's got the stance. It's the SGS boot, but it was the stance geometry setup where you could actually unscrew this, get somebody dialed in with the balancer, and then screw it back in so that they could actually get a flat ski. And I remember we were doing that. I think that was one of the first years I was with Greg. 2000, we were out at Mount Bachelor in Oregon, getting people out there. It was called the People's Boot Test, and got people up there, screwed them, got them balanced to where we thought they should be, and then you just screw it in, and it kind of got everybody thinking about canting and alignment. And that was really when shape skis, obviously were on board by then. But this was a boot that I just never really took off, and because of liability, because you'd ski it about 2 runs and then these things would just loosen up, and then you just had this boot that was free willy where you'd move and the ski would just go straight. But yeah, this was a cool boot. I got a couple of these. And then the boot that actually everybody said was a failure was the old Rosley soft boot. I thought that boot was amazing because it got people to understand that it's not about having this rigid, solid plastic. And it got people to understand that the boot can be easier to get on. And obviously it failed because the name was called Soft, Soft 1, 2, 3, and then they had a Pro. So that was an epic fail for marketing. But there's every boot that's on the market right now has some kind of technology that boot developed and kind of pioneered. So I got one of those boots over there, but I think that was one of the, a boot that was a failure, but actually was a success in the long run.
What is your personal favorite boot color of all time?
Oh, color? Well, I look good in orange because the name for Project 165 is there's Pantheon 165, which is the color Agent Orange, the orange color of the Technica boots. And that's where the name comes from for our project group. But for me, I don't know. You can't go wrong with black either. Black goes with everything. It's black looks good on everybody.
Does my ass look big in these ski boots?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad you didn't pick white.
It's very slimming.
Here's a real question. You ready? Somebody comes into your shop. What should they ask you?
Oh, what should they ask? That's a good question. Not what's on sale or what you got left over from last year, which are obviously good questions or whatever, because you can always get a deal, but it's only a deal if it works. But what they should ask me is, hey, what are some of the styles of boots that you have? And hopefully people have done their homework and understood with education now that there's so many different ideas with boots out there for shapes and volumes. And it's what everybody should go in when they ask to any shop, is just to see if they have a full range of boots for volumes. Because that's the biggest, when somebody goes up on the bench and we measure their foot, we're obviously looking at their shape of their foot for width. And I don't pick boots based off of which ones are going to work. I work backwards and eliminate the boots that are not going to work for people. So if I have 30 boots up on the wall and I look at somebody's performance, their foot shape, maybe how much they want to spend or any of those factors that play, and then there's 3 boots left, then I pick those 3 boots and let them try them on and do the cage match where you'll put one on one foot, one on the other. But making sure that a shop has a full array of boots is really important so that they're just not getting into something that's, this is only what we have. These are great boots. They could be, every boot is great right now. There isn't a sucky boot out there. All the boots are really good because they have an identity and they have a setup for a certain person. And it's just a matter of me holding somebody's hand, walking them through so that they can understand, I'm leading you to where the boots are that you're looking for, that they're the options that we've talked about, and what you're looking for, what the boot to do. Here's the magic land in the room of where there's a couple of boots, and go from there. So the biggest thing that I ask for people is just to be open-minded. Give the boots a couple minutes, let your foot relax, understand that the boot is very easy to work on. Obviously, it shouldn't kill when you're trying it on in the store and things like that. But the boot's going to feel the tightest when you try it on brand new in the shop. It's only going to get bigger. And what you're looking for is that it should feel like a firm handshake or a glove. It should feel like there's even pressure everywhere, but it should feel like it's a part of you, so that any movement, is going to get extended out to the ski, and just that it's going to be able to enhance your skiing. So just have people, it takes time. Like a good boot fit should take about an hour. you should be able to try on, about 3 boots is usually good. If you try on more than that, obviously it takes too long. Your foot doesn't remember what you tried on with boot 1 versus boot 5. And a lot of shops don't have that many options also that are in the right setup. You don't need to try on every boot that's on the wall. Because obviously if you have a really skinny foot, you're not going to be trying on any of the wide boots. So those eliminate. They're great boots, but they're just not going to work for you as an individual. And then you want to do that cage max that I talked about with trying one boot on one foot, one on the other, and then flip-flopping them, because your foot's going to be different left versus right. And if I keep one boot on the left foot and try 3 boots on the right foot, all of them are going to stink, and that left foot's the problem foot, and everything fits great there. You got to be able to flip-flop and get an understanding that the boots are workable. You want to go to a shop that has a guarantee and is going to work with you. The best place to go to buy boots is at the mountains where you ski, or a shop that you trust in town or back home, so that you can get adjustments. But adjustments are part of the deal with all these boots. It shouldn't be, a one-shot thing. It should be something that you start skiing and it's going to break in more. It usually takes, 3 or 4 days of skiing for the boot to break in properly and get things going. Your foot's used to being in a boot. And if you need a little adjustments but you just want to be able to go to a shop that you can trust and that has an open mind and will work with you on making the boots adjustable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is great.
And it sounds stupidly simple, but it is that simple. I mean, these boots are so easy to work on compared to, say, 20 years ago when I started fitting boots, with grinding and stretching. I mean, the boots are so light now. The liners are so much warmer. They're using different materials to trap heat. Obviously, with heated socks and heated, lithium batteries and all this other stuff, where you can actually stay out longer and feel warm and comfortable. And that's what it goes down to, is just still feeling comfortable while you're skiing. Because, that's great. You can be in this high-end race boot that you paid $900 for, but if you can only do 2 runs before you got to go in the lodge, I mean, it's not really a good investment for money, for value. So, we're competing with the beach and warm weather and other different things. And with skiing, being cold and the hassle of going to the mountains and all this other stuff, you want to make it as enjoyable as you can. And the boots are just so easy to work with now that it's possible. You can get a comfortable boot really easily. So
perfect. This has been awesome. We are going to extend the invitation. We would like to have you back again this winter, because I guarantee we'll have some people wanting to go into some more specific boot alignment issues or boot alignment factors. And I would love to have you back to chat about that, or maybe we'll get some other questions. But thanks for being with us tonight, Nick. And Angelo, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I mean, I love talking about boots, and there's so many different ways to go about it and talk about things. And the biggest thing is just having people, I love having people come in the store and ask questions or want to try stuff on. Hey, great. Don't do it on a Saturday at 4:00 when we're busy, but, and same with all these other shops too. But, being able to talk and understand what's going on. And, if people have questions and want to write it in the comments, and we can circle back in a couple months and, do different things and talk about different stuff. I mean, there's just so much to it, and we can get in depth and talk about tangents and do different things of whatever anybody wants. But that's what's so great about this with e-boots. It's the most important piece, so we should really focus on it, as much as we can.
Absolutely. So thanks everyone out there for listening. This has been the Fall Line with KS and Company. We've had Nick Blaylock tonight at Nick's Bootfitting over at Mount Snow. Got it right that time, didn't I?
You got it. Yep. Good delivery.
Practice takes time, man. And it's always a good thing when you go in. I have to say, when you just go in and get to your skis tuned or get a boot fit, a couple beers or a rack of beer goes a long way if you want to learn some stuff about boot fitting.
Oh yeah, and
no argument.
And wanting to learn, especially with the instructors, learning the equipment is key.
Yeah,
you got to learn what's out there, what people are skiing on, skis, boots, bindings, all these different things. So understanding and talking with people. I mean, like Angelo said about, asking stupid questions. I mean, I'm a smart ass and always tell people, I'm going to give them stupid answers, but you got to ask the question, and then learn. So that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Thanks. Been a great podcast. Awesome.